Long ago, the Lord of Heaven had a son named Hwanung. He wanted to live among people and help them, so he came down to a tall mountain. The wind, the rain, and the clouds came along with him. There he built a city, and he taught the people many useful things about farming and daily life. One day, a bear and a tiger came to him, for they wished to become human. Hwanung gave them some garlic and a bundle of mugwort, and he said, "Eat only this, and stay out of the sunlight for 100 days." The tiger soon gave up and ran away, but the bear waited and waited. After a while, the patient bear turned into a woman. The woman married Hwanung, and before long they had a son named Dangun. People say that Dangun grew up and built the first Korean kingdom, which he called Gojoseon. This old story is known as the Dangun myth, and Koreans have told it for thousands of years.
How do we know what really happened thousands of years ago? For very old times, such as the age of Gojoseon, this turns out to be a surprisingly hard question. The people who lived back then left almost no written records of their own. The Dangun story itself was not written down until much later. The oldest book that tells it, the Samguk Yusa, was produced in the 13th century. That is more than 3,000 years after Dangun was supposed to have lived. Because of this enormous gap in time, historians cannot simply trust the story word for word. Instead, they search for other kinds of clues. They carefully study the tools, the pottery, and the bronze objects that ancient people left buried in the ground. These remains show that real communities did settle and grow in this region long ago. So historians treat the founding legend and the physical evidence as two very different things, and they weigh each one with caution.
A founding myth is not a simple photograph of the distant past. It is better understood as a mirror that reflects the age in which it was finally written down. When a story is recorded centuries after the events it describes, the concerns of the writer's own time inevitably shape how it is told. Particular details may be added, softened, or reinterpreted to fit the beliefs that matter at the moment of writing. The Dangun narrative illustrates this process clearly. The version most people know was set down during a period when the kingdom faced foreign pressure and needed a powerful symbol of unity. A heroic ancestor who founded the nation under heaven's blessing served that need well. This does not mean the story is worthless to historians. Rather, even if it cannot be accepted as a literal record, it remains valuable evidence of how a later society imagined its own origins and what it wished those origins to mean.
Scholars who study how nations remember their beginnings argue that an origin is rarely a neutral fact waiting to be discovered. More often, it is actively constructed to satisfy the needs of the present. The very desire to trace a single unbroken line from one ancient ancestor down to an entire modern people is itself a distinctively modern habit of mind. It grows stronger whenever a community feels its shared identity to be threatened by outside forces. Faced with colonial domination or disorienting social change, intellectuals often reach back to a mythical founder and elevate him into the proven starting point of national history. In Korea, nationalist historians of the early 20th century treated the figure of Dangun in precisely this way, recasting a religious legend as documented political history in order to demonstrate the antiquity and dignity of the nation. To recognize this process, however, is not to dismiss such narratives as mere fabrication. It is rather to read them critically as artifacts of the moment that produced them, attending less to whether the founder literally existed than to why each successive generation found it necessary to reconstruct him anew.